Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online, in association with the Dodge Calibre.
Hello, and welcome to Baddiel and Skinner's World Cup podcast.
On this show, we'll be finding out about Peter Crouch's appearance on University Challenge.
Yeah, we'll be hearing all your ideas for new nicknames for the England squad.
And we've got a new competition, a fantastic competition,
Oh, yeah.
starting today, in which you can win a massive, sort of big car.
A big car,
Yeah.
Brilliant. And also, of course, we'll be hearing from our special World Cup guest, Morrissey. Frank, did you watch the England-Jamaica game?
I did by chance. I assumed it was going to be a 3 o'clock kickoff, and I thought, well, I'll watch some of the preamble on the telly. And I put it on at about 3 minutes to 2, and they were just... Actually, there was the longest national anthem I've ever heard from the Jamaicans.
Well, it might have been because they were late. Did you hear this?
They were late.
Yes, interesting. You were late. They were late arriving. Did you not hear this?
They obviously thought it was a 3 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah.
But Ian Wright was late as well.
Ian Wright was late, yes. So Ian Wright then said he was late because he was trying to do homage to the way the Jamaicans are, because they were just chilling out and they arrived late. But I didn't know why they were late. And then I read that apparently the goalkeeper's shirt was at the laundrette and someone had to go and get it. Right. To go and get it from the service wash or something and bring it back for the goalie.
At the laundrette?
Yeah, apparently it was at the laundrette. I don't know if it was a Jamaican laundrette. We had to go all the way to Jamaica for it.
Oh,
But it was an odd thing.
I didn't know that.
Because I actually, I was publicising these very podcasts on the Eamon Holmes show on Radio 5, and I was talking to him, this was before the game, and he's going to ask me about Peter Crouch's robotics, and just in passing, and I got into a terrible tiz, because I said it'll be interesting if he does the dance, it'll be interesting to see how the Jamaicans, what the Jamaicans think of it, and as I said it, I thought, is that racist? Is that implying that Jamaicans have got a sort of special stranglehold on dance that's somehow stereotypical?
Yeah.
And as I said it, I thought I started to fluster because I thought, what do I say next after I've said what will the Jamaicans think of it? But then fabulously, the Jamaicans were late, thus completely confirming their kind of chilled out Caribbean stereotype.
I don't think they would have recognised it as a dance anyway, would they?
No, I'm not sure they would.
They'd have probably thought, is he all right, that man?
Yeah, they might have thought he had St. Vitus's dance,
Yeah,
which I
exactly.
believe they may still have in Jamaica. So what did you think of it as a game?
I thought it was. I liked the way it started off, and John Watson said to Lawrence, and he said, "You know, this is a bit tougher than we thought. This is going to be like a proper game." And then 20 minutes later, he was saying, "Well, of course, this is just a practice match."
There was a moment between Motson and Lawrenson, which I wanted to see if you noticed, which is I can't remember what the player was now. Some Jamaican player called Caesar, something or other. But he played for Kansas City Wizards.
Right.
And at that point, that was mentioned by John Motson, and Martin Lawrenson, after about 3 minutes of thinking about it, said, "I thought you were going to say he had a spell with Kansas City Wizards."
Yeah.
And then after another 4 minutes of thinking about it, John Motson said, "You're really bewitching me today."
Very good.
Right. And I thought that is the worst bit of commentator-co-commentator repartee I've ever heard.
Well, did you hear the bit? I can't remember which. I think it was in the Hungary friendly when he said to Lawrence, and he said, "In a minute, Mark, I'm going to ask you which of the World Cup songs you like."
Yes.
And he said, "All right." So gave him a chance to prepare, and he said, "Well, which one?" And he said, "None of them."
Yeah, I actually nearly texted you at that point because we weren't watching it together and said, "Thanks very much for that, Lawrence."
Well, I think Lawrenson doesn't like anything that isn't done by professional footballers who played at the very highest level. I think he resents the very existence of fans.
Yeah, I'm not sure he
and
likes
stuff like that.
very much in general. He seems a dour fellow.
He does.
In many respects. But it was an interesting game in some respects, and it sees the arrival, doesn't it, of Peter Crouch as a kind of national hero.
I think probably when he did the dance against Hungary, that was. I think we're going to look back as Peter Crouch's robotic dance is kind of like Gaz's tears. That was the moment he became a legendary figure.
Yeah, an iconic moment. But the great thing about Peter Crouch is that, you know, he is turning out to play well in lots of ways, and yet he's still retaining an absolute absurdity. Don't you think? You know, he scores, which is great, and then he does a really stupid dance, so that he's actually playing well and still being a funny, ridiculous figure, which is a perfect combination. I mean, when he did the dance, what I thought was, this is a bloke who looks like he's on stilts anyway. Now he's doing a robotic dance. It's like being at Covent Garden in the 80s, watching a street entertainer.
Well, he brings up his elbows quite high when he does the dance, and I thought there could actually be danger for the other players in the celebrations, because you wouldn't want Peter Crouch's elbow going into your chest.
Well, they're very sharp, aren't they?
I imagine it would come out your back.
No, they're awful. But I do think he's becoming a major figure. One of the things that I've often thought about Peter Crouch is that he represents an interesting philosophical problem about the aspect of being tall, which is that generally, as quite a short bloke, I'm about 5'8", I think it's quite good being tall, and 6'2", 6'3", it's all like, oh, I wish I was that high. And then suddenly there comes a point where you're no longer good tall, you're stupid tall, and that seems to be summed up by Peter Crouch.
Yeah, it's hard to say where. I mean, if Peter Crouch was kind of built like Dennis Rodman, though, I think that would be all right. It's just because, like, his legs, the novelty hasn't worn off. It looks, you know those things on You've Been Framed, when a bloke has got one foot on the dock and one in a small rowing boat, and it starts to separate? Yeah. It looks like Peter Crouch has stuck with it.
Yes.
Even when the boat's been out, the boat's actually gone out to sea.
Yes.
And Peter Crouch has still got his feet planted.
He looks like he's been on a rack. That's how he was made, by some kind of Spanish Inquisitional rack.
Yeah.
And that's how he was left.
One good thing about it, though, is, you know, when they interview, like when players suddenly become stars, like Theo Walcott, and they say, isn't it a bit odd for you, you know, being pointed at in the street and stuff like that? And Crouch is going to say, no, that's been true since I was about 7.
Yeah, he's always been pointed out in the street. But, you know, I did like him dancing. I thought there was something incredibly charming about it. I thought he had a good groove for a big man.
Yes, he has got a good groove. You can see that quite clearly. I don't know, I thought that when he took the penalty, it kind of reminded me that deep down I still think he's rubbish.
What I thought, I don't know if you thought this, when he was about to take the penalty, I instantly thought he's going to miss. And not actually because he's rubbish, but because he's absurd. I thought he will now miss in a silly way, and he actually did miss in a silly way. And must be the only player to score a hat-trick in an England game and still be told off by the manager. You know, he was actually told off by Sven for trying such a silly penalty.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was. He said, why did you do that? And Sven, I imagine, never tells anyone off.
It'll be great, though, if England win the World Cup, if they get someone up on his shoulders, the way they did with Bobby Moore. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. He's going to be high above the stadium. Just a little bit of snow on the top of the World Cup.
That raises a point that you've made, actually, to me in the past, which is this idea that you should be able to put a player on another player's shoulders during the game, if you want. And with Peter Crouch, that would make the tallest thing in the world.
This is a kind of a rugby point. I hate rugby, as you know, but they do, when they have a line out, they literally lift the bloke up. And I don't see why, if they lifted, he doesn't look very heavy, Peter Crouch, and he's quite aerodynamic. If they thrust him upwards, they'd have like about, 8 or 9 feet. They could put the ball across.
That point about him not being very heavy is a very interesting one, because, what is he, 6'7"?
6'7", yeah.
Yeah, and I would have thought he must be one of the lightest 6'7" people in the world. He must hold some kind of record weight for that height.
But where's it all
going to end?
Where is it going to end? Because I still have got serious doubts as to whether he's any good or not. If you looked at the hat-trick, it was an own goal. It was a ball from about 2 feet off the line. Then he missed a penalty. And then the final goal, which looked really good, was one of those when I thought really could have gone anywhere.
Yeah.
So I kind of like Peter Crouch because I like to see people who were picked on at school doing well.
Yes.
But I'm not totally convinced that he's an international footballer.
You could be right. I mean, it's interesting about him being picked on, in that when I heard that Sven had told him off, I thought that is